Welcome back to Cruder.com. In this next video, we're going to go over some real-life examples using conditional formatting. So we're back to conditional formatting, and our definition is if your condition evaluates to true, then the custom formatting is applied to whatever range of cells you've selected. Now, keeping that in mind with a true or false answer here, let's think of the different ways that we can write a statement where it will return a true or a false answer. Now, there can be a single type of a condition or a single type of a formula where you say, hey, 5 is less than or equal to 5, and that would evaluate as true. And then you can have a multiple conditional format where you're evaluating two different types of criteria, saying 5 is less than or equal to 5, and 3 is less than or equal to 5. Both of those statements are true, therefore Excel returns the true answer. Now you can do this or that type of thing, where it's saying the same thing, 5 is less than or equal to 5, or 3 is less than or equal to 5. And of course that's going to be true too, because the and statement was true. But there's another one that you don't always think about, and that's using those is formulas, where the formula starts with is, saying is blank, and the value that gets returned is a true or false answer. So C7, that's this cell right here, is blank, that's false because there's a less than or equal to sign there. If we say greater than or equal to, we get true, false, true, and notice that the true statements are always getting the formatting. Now just remember all the other types of is statements that there are. So you can do is blank, is error, is number, is even or odd, logical, or is formula. I think there's a couple more. This is a pretty good concise list. You could just start typing the formula equals is and let Excel tell you all the different formulas that are available. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to our first example. Now this is more of an accounting example where we have an accrued liabilities work paper here. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to reconcile our accrued liabilities account. And we find that, hey, we've accrued 5 different types of transactions that we've noticed that have not been put into our general ledger, yet we know that they're due, so we've accrued for them. And what we're just trying to do is we're trying to make sure that our general ledger balance, our GL balance, of 56,805.44 equals the same amount as our detailed spreadsheet here. But then while we're entering it all in, at the very end, we see, oh shoot, we're off $9. Well, the thing that's great about this is that it sticks out like a sore thumb. You can't miss a highlighted yellow and then red text blaring out at you, which is a great thing because you don't even have to think. You don't have to look and compare these two numbers. No, instead, you've already set up a variance that pops this out right into your face and everybody else's face. Let's go ahead and delete this conditional format and then set it up quickly. So I'm going to pop down the ribbon with Control F1 and go into conditional formatting, clear my rule from the entire sheet. And this one's a really simple one. I'm just going to say, hey, that this variance, it needs to be 0. And that's all I have to do. I'm going to set up a new rule and I'm going to come in here the longhand way. And you're going to have to do this each time you come in here. You're going to have to start reading these. You're going to say, hey, do I want to format all cells based on their values? No, I just want one cell, so I don't want all cells. Format only cells that contain, and that kind of seems like it, but let's keep on going. Format only top or bottom ranked values? No. Format only values that are above or below average? No. Unique? No. Define my own? No. I think it might be this, so let's pop into this one. And what we want the cell value, we want it to equal 0. So if it's something other than 0, then we want to bring attention to it. So let's go ahead and set that up first. So not equal to 0. If this doesn't equal 0, then there's something wrong. And let's highlight it with bright yellow, put on a red border because I couldn't see the yellow fill. And then let's put in a red text on this as well. And hit OK, OK. We have the red text, yellow background, red border, perfect. Now I got to figure out what the heck is going on with my spreadsheet here. And after spending about 5 minutes, I realized that, hey, shoot, I entered this Verizon bill, this one that I accrued for, I entered it in backwards. I transposed these numbers, it should have been 89 instead of 98, and now it went away. Okay, but now it's gone away. What if I want to go ahead and highlight this in like bright green to tell me, hey, that's like green means good, I'm all set. Well, you could do that simply just by saying, hey, if this equals 0, so I'm going to go new rule, same area, so format only cells that contain, cell value is equal to 0. So last time it was not equal to 0. This time, if it's equal to 0, That's awesome. I want to highlight that in green. And let's put in a font color of white and hit OK. Now it looks great. So I can pop into the spreadsheet. If I see green, that's all I need to know that it's all good. If I see yellow and red border, that means that I need to attend to the spreadsheet. Okay, let's go on to this next and final example. In this next example, we're going to go over a credit card reconciliation or any type of a reconciliation where you're going line by line comparing, is it recorded? Is it not recorded? Is it recorded? Is it not recorded? And your current practice might be putting an X next to them or something like that, or highlighting or doing something to indicate that that transaction has been recorded or has not been recorded. Let me undo all of this real quick. What if there was a way where you could just put an X next to something and then it would highlight, and at the same time it would update the total to see how far off you are between the GL balance and your reconciliation. Now we can do this with conditional formatting. It's kind of neat because you can go through and quickly just put a couple X's and then finally get to where you're complete. Now, how do we set this all up? Well, let's first start off with this formula. And I've put in a sum if formula saying, hey, if this range, this blue side, if that is less than or greater than, this is basically saying if it's something other than nothing. There's two double quotes, empty double quotes, there's nothing in here, so I'm going to delete those spaces. This is kind of difficult to read when you're looking at it, but literally this is saying if this range right here, the blue range, if it's not empty, which the X's are not empty because there's an X there, then go ahead and add whatever's in this column. If you're unfamiliar with the sum if formula, definitely go back and check out the math formulas. I'm just gonna hit enter. So with this formula, whenever I put an X, it's gonna update this formula and then also this formula, which is doing just the difference between the two. And there's conditional formatting on this cell saying, just like we did in the last example, if it's something other than nothing, go ahead and pop it out like a sore thumb. This time I chose bright red and white font. I'm gonna go ahead and delete this one. And let's go ahead and figure out how we can set up the conditional formatting in this area and not do this one again. So I'm going to delete this, clear that rule just for my selected cells. For this one, let's go ahead and write a formula to the right side. We need to type a formula where this cell and this cell and this cell will be true if there's an X here. And then if there's no X here, all three of these cells need to return a false value if this formula that we're going to write over here comes back. So it's much easier if you write it outside of conditional formatting, outside of the new rule dialog box, just because it's much more sensitive within that dialog box. So to do this, we're going to start by saying if this cell, the recorded cell, that's where we're going to be putting our X's in, if that is something other than nothing, that means does not equal nothing. I usually just read it as something other than and nothing. So there's nothing between these two double quotes. So it literally could be anything besides a blank cell here. And even better yet, let's go ahead and use you could do this formula, or you could go ahead and put in equals is blank and put in the value of this cell and close it up. And so that is blank, but we don't want it to highlight when it's blank. A true statement will get the formatting. Well, we don't want formatting on here because there's no X there. So to reverse this, I don't know if you remember, but you can use that not formula. It's a logical formula to switch the logic from being true to now false. So let's get rid of the first one and let's go use this is blank and let's copy that back here. So did you notice that I copied it back to the left, and since I had a relative reference, it's now looking at Subway. Obviously Subway's there, so it's not blank. And so when you read this is blank, no, that's not blank, so it's false, but then it switched it to true, which is why it's true now. So what we need to do, we need to lock it on this column. That column needs to be locked, but obviously we don't want to lock the row because we want to check out what's going on for Delta, Marriott Hotel, and the rest. So I'm going to lock this up and then press F4, 1, 2, 3 times and hit enter. Then I'm going to copy it to the left one, copy it to the right one. And why I did that is because these 3 cells here, these are representing these 3 columns. So when these are all false, that means that these 3 cells will not get the formatting. So let me go over here and copy it down now and see if this looks good. So I'm going to get all trues for this one, which makes sense, right? That's all true because it has the X. The next one, all true, because again it has the X. Falses, trues, and then trues again. And so this is how the formatting is going to look when we're all done. I'm going to undo that, Control Z. Now here's where, again, you got to pay attention. You got to come into this formula that we wrote outside of the conditional formatting dialog box. Copy the whole thing, including the equal sign. And then you're going to go ahead and you're going to highlight from the top left to the bottom right, because it's important that you do this as the active cell, the white one, and leave these as the grays. This indicates that this cell, B9, is the active cell in the selection. And we're doing that because we grabbed the formula from this top left cell, which represents Subway in this example. So now we're going to go into creating our new rule. This is the time where we're going to use our formulas. So I'm going to pop down to the formula one, format values where this formula is true. Again, that's why we checked outside here that it would evaluate true on the correct spots. I'm then just going to paste it in here, Control V, and set my formatting. I'm just going to put a fill to a light yellow. So I'm going to just pick this light yellow, hit OK, and hit OK again. It's that simple. So let me go ahead and delete this, and you can put X's here, delete this one to just test that it works.